I'd like to signal the presence with us this morning of Marc Miller, who is the MP4, and then I'm going to get stuck on the name of the riding. But Marc, could you just stand for a moment? And Marc, could you help me out? What riding is it?
It boggles the mind, but it's Ville-Marie in the Sud-Ouest, Île-des-Sœurs. So basically, I don't think anyone is any clearer for that. But luckily there's another person in Parliament called Miller, so when my vote comes up they have to name my riding. So every time we vote, like the marathon votes that we had 2 weeks ago, my riding name was said about 250 times. So most people don't like me, but now they don't like me for good reason, because they have to know my riding. But they do know what I represent. I just want to thank you. I can't stay long today here, but I do want to thank you for having me today. Your advocacy is extremely important in a lot of the policies we do, and in fact we're putting in place. And we can do more for seniors. We've put a lot of emphasis on youth, as you well know. And I'm not a senior; it's quite visible. Give me 20 years. But we're very aware of the challenges faced by seniors, and we campaign on a lot of platform items that we're putting into place right now. I don't want to dominate this conversation. I will get out of here. But one of the things that we've pushed, at least locally, in every riding association, at least for Liberals, is to put together a seniors council, because that advocacy on the ground is extremely important. And youth councils are very good at getting their points across, but good Lord, seniors councils are extremely good at getting their points across, and everyone in our riding knows it, and we're richer for it. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to get your points to us, but also for what you're doing on the ground every day. Thank you.
Sorry? Masters. And yes, you did. So Emmanuel spoke to us about what exactly is social isolation, and her explanation made us realize that it's a bit complicated, because two people in similar circumstances, one can be quite content and another one can be socially isolated. One of the questions that has preoccupied us during the project, because it's focused on English-speaking socially isolated seniors, is, well, how many are there and where are they? And it's not easy to answer this question, and we still don't feel that we have definitive answers, but there are some things that we can look at. So first of all, we're going to look at some information that was prepared by CHSSN in collaboration with Quebec, because in it there are some indicators of possible social isolation and how many people might be affected by these. It talks about the number of seniors in Quebec, so over 160,000, about 14%, 15% of the Quebec population. But you can see that in some regions the percent of seniors in the local population is much higher than the average of 15. In the Gaspé 25, Estrie 23, Les Îles-de-la-Madeleine 20. So there are some communities where seniors make a much bigger part of the population. 2 in 5 seniors are living on $20,000 a year or less. 2 in 5. When I first heard that, I thought, gee, that's hard to believe, but it's true. Now, not everybody who's living on $20,000 a year is necessarily socially isolated, but living on $20,000 a year or less is definitely going to have some kind of an impact on your ability to be involved in the community, to enjoy activities, to do a number of other things. So not everybody, it's not an automatic indicator of social isolation, but it's a potential indicator. And there's a lot of people affected in Quebec by that. There are measures of social and emotional support. 43% of English speakers who are 65 plus are members of a social club or participate in a social organization. That's good, but it means there's 57% who don't. That's a lot. And not all of them will be socially isolated. Some of them might be quite happy not to have to participate in things like this. But others are not participating because they are isolated. And it's not in small numbers. So that's one set of information that gave us some idea about potential indicators. And CHSSN also commissioned some work at our request on the same topic by researcher Joanne Pocock, who some of you know and who is well known and very familiar with the English-speaking community of Quebec. And so we'll just take a look at a few numbers that come from a voluminous set of information that she sent to me, and I'll explain more about that at the end here. But in all of Quebec, these numbers are all based on the 2016 census, except a couple that come from 2011, which are indicated where that's the case. So there were, in 2016, there were just over 1 million English-speaking Quebecers, and 159, almost 160,000, were 65 plus in 2011. 52% of them are women, and 48% are men. Next slide. So this is the part that helps us look a bit more at possible social isolation. 29% are living alone. That's 46,000 people, 46,000 seniors are living alone. Some of them happily, but I think we would not say all of them happily. 37% of women, 65% live alone, and 20% of men. So you can see that living alone is something that affects women 65 plus much more than men. 33% are living on an income under $20,000. And of those, 18% of women 65 plus are living under 20,000, but 29% of men 65 plus are living under 20,000. So the indicator of living under 20,000 is something that is affecting men 65 plus more than women, even though there are less men than women 65 plus. And finally, some of you may be familiar with the measure known as LICO, low income cutoff. Yeah, that's it, right? It's an indicator of straitened circumstances, just meaning it's tough to make ends meet. And this indicator, which is measured in the census, in Quebec for English-speaking people 65 plus, 18% of women 65 plus English-speaking are living below LICO, and 13% of men. So even though the living under 20,000 is affecting men more than women, being affected by LICO is affecting women somewhat more than men. Now, these indicators by themselves, they don't indicate automatically that the person affected by these or found inside these measures is socially isolated, but some of them will be. And really the point that I wanted to emphasize here is that we're not talking about 10 people or 100 people, we're talking about several thousand people. So if we're trying to figure out how many people are socially isolated among English-speaking seniors in Quebec, we don't know the exact answer, but the answer is probably several thousand. Now, there are other indicators that we're interested in, but we don't have measures for them at the moment. They're probably available in the census. People living with significant medical conditions, people living with mobility limitations, people who have a low implication in social and community life, and people who have a weak or absent social safety network. I wish I did have numbers to present to you today, but I don't. But these are measures which we think, once we can connect them to the census material, it's going to give us a better idea of how many people are we talking about. Just a word to our organizational partners. The information that Joanne Pocock gave us was broken down by every region in Quebec. If I showed it to you here, it would look like some kind of an eye test. But what we're going to be able to do is to take this information and pull it apart region by region, and we can be able to give each region the picture of these measures for their own region. It doesn't tell you where socially isolated seniors are living. Only you are able to figure that out, but it can give you an idea of how many and affected by which of the conditions that we're talking about. So that's a start. So now it's my turn to give you an overview of the GPS project. So the purpose today is to explain what has happened in the project. I'm going to start by just explaining what did we intend to do when we started the project. The time passes quickly, as you know, and it's a bit amazing for me to realize that the first thinking that we did about the GPS project was in 2014, already 4 years ago. And we submitted the project proposal in 2014, and it took 2 years for it to be approved. So it was approved in 2016. So now we're going to just have a quick look at what did we say we were going to try and do in the project, so that as you hear the results, you can measure it against what we said we would try to do. Go ahead. So the objectives were to promote volunteerism among seniors, and you'll see in the reports that in every region, groups of volunteers, most of them seniors, were involved in trying to reach socially isolated seniors. Another objective was to increase the community capacity to provide navigation services. So the seniors who are the volunteers are helping the socially isolated seniors connect with information services and so on. To reduce the social isolation of English-speaking seniors by supporting their awareness of an ability to navigate various kinds of government services and community resources. And finally, to further reduce social isolation by supporting contact between socially isolated seniors who have problems of abuse or depression and dementia, and contact with professionals in their area who can assist them with those. So those were the four main objectives of the project. There was an extensive list of activities, but in summary, the first 4 months were just spent getting the project started. There was a steering committee to be formed, the hiring of a coordinator, the naming of the local project leaders who you will meet, finding and creating a workbook for volunteers. So we created one workbook which was the same for all of the volunteers in different regions, except for the part that listed the resources. All of that was local. In months 4 to 12, the volunteers received some training, which we organized and we delivered remotely through the very exciting use of video conferencing. And if you've ever done this, there's so many things that can go wrong, and they usually do. But somehow we managed eventually to get everybody trained. There was the police checks, and then the starting of the initial contacts with seniors. So it takes a while to get going. In months 12 to 24, well, that's the period we're in now. We're up to month about 21 or 2 as we speak. Contacts continued with seniors. There were site visits made by the project coordinator and a steering committee member, who happened to be myself. There was sentinel role training. This refers to some additional training so that people could recognize or at least detect the possibility of dementia, abuse, etc. And there was also an external evaluation that was done all along through the project, and you're going to hear about this afternoon. And finally, the symposium. So the symposium was part of our project proposal. I have to say that in 2014, when we wrote these words, it seemed 100 years away, but here we are. And the expected results, well, there are two kinds. There's outputs and outcomes. So the outputs are sort of things that are concrete, like an evaluation plan, mapping of where isolated English-speaking seniors are located. That's not easy to do, but in communities, people eventually start to figure out through references and through talking to different resources in the community where isolated seniors might be. There was a profile of the volunteer candidates, so if you're going to use volunteers to reach isolated seniors, it's not for everybody. You meet as a volunteer, you can meet people in distressed situations and distressing situations, and that's not for everybody. There was a guidebook, as I mentioned, and a training program, so all of this is left behind and can be used by other people in the future. We had a virtual workshop to train the volunteers. There's an elementary sustainability plan in each region, and we're going to talk about that at the end of the afternoon. There was an outreach plan in each region to try to figure out where are the socially isolated seniors, how do we knock on their door and make contact with them. There's the symposium, which we have today. There's the evaluation report, which we'll hear about this afternoon. And Kelly has the wonderful opportunity to write the final report. I refer to it as wonderful because it's wonderful that I don't have to do it. So all of these are all concrete outputs, and they'll be left behind when the project is over. And then there are the outcomes, which is the next slide. Which, as we saw them back 4 years ago, was to improve accessibility for about 215 seniors to social support information and assistance. So that was our guesstimate of how many seniors might get reached. To increase community capacity to locate and make contact with seniors in 3 regions, because this project has been carried out in 3 regions of Quebec, in Gaspé, in the North Shore, in Montreal, in the Black community in Montreal. There will be another outcome is that 3 project sites are equipped with a total of 30 to 36 trained volunteers who are capable of sustaining activities post-project, and we've heard people talk about that. It's obviously not a requirement, but when you talk to some of the volunteers, you realize, well, it may not be a requirement, but it's part of the commitment that they kind of developed as the project went along. There was the outcome of improving coordination and linkages to reduce isolation by engaging partners in development of second-line resources. So this is for people faced with dementia, abuse, and so on. And finally, a kind of a global outcome of reducing social isolation and improving quality of life for those English-speaking seniors in 3 regions in Quebec. So on the huge scale of things, have we made a huge dent in social isolation? No, I don't think so. But in the communities where the project went on, I think it probably has made a good start on doing that. And we hope that we're leaving behind some tools and models and information that can help inspire other people about how could they go about reaching socially isolated seniors. So back in 2014, this is how we described what it was that we hoped to accomplish in the project. And as you hear the presentations from our partners, you'll be able to see how did that pan out in the 2 years that the project's been in operation. The GPS project has been overseen by a steering committee, which is mandated by the Board of Seniors Action Quebec. And there are 4 members of the committee, so I just want to take a moment to introduce these members to you. First of all, there's Ruth Pelletier, who is the past president of Seniors Action Quebec. And where are you, Ruth? Where is she?
She's outside at the moment.
She stepped out.
She's taking care of something.
Okay.
We had a little...
Now. Ruth, I was just explaining that you are one of the members of the steering committee, and past president, and known to many people in this room. And as you'll see later, a person who has contributed hugely to the organization of today's symposium. The second member is Lina Bouchel, who is the Vice President of Seniors Action Quebec and has acted as Ruth's right-hand person during the organization of the symposium. And you may wonder, well, why does she get to sit in an armchair when you have to sit in those chairs? And the answer is because 4 weeks ago, Lina had a knee replacement. So she is here 4 weeks after a knee replacement, which is courageous. The third member is myself, and the fourth member is the project coordinator, who is Kelly Frisbee. Stand up. And Kelly has worked intensively with the project partners, and we'll talk to you a bit later about how things have gone from her point of view.